Hey, welcome to Blackbird. We're going to change up our format this series. This series is in honor of Black History Month, and we are doing Black profiles in American history. The videos will highlight different, often overlooked or little studied Black contributors, to American history in big ways. I'm Megan. Ashley's here, Mike is here, Joe's here, Elizabeth's here. We're all hanging out. And Micah, any housekeeping?
In the links below, you will find the link to the Facebook group. Megan is there. She's moderating. She's answering questions. She will totally talk to you.
All right, so Ashley, who you got? What you got?
All right, so I looked into more so a group, a collective of quilters of all things. And they are a group of quilters basically known as the Quilters of Gee's Bend, who reside in Gee's Bend or Boykin, Alabama, just depending on the map and the time period. Their quilts have been called literally some of the most important African-American visual and cultural contributions to the history of art in the entire US. So like the stuff that they do is literally mind-blowing. It's beautiful. And it was all for the warmth of their family. So it was used, which is why also a lot of the pieces kind of don't really exist anymore, because they were the older original pieces were used and used and used and used and used and used and used. In 2015, the Gee's Bend Quilters, Mary Lee Bendolph, Lucy Mingo, and Loretta Petway, which she is part of the original history of that whole area. Her family goes back a very, very long time. They were actually awarded the National Heritage Fellowship, which is the United States' highest honor for folk and traditional art. So they are gaining recognition. And obviously that was in 2015, so it's taken a minute, but they've been doing it since, before during slavery and even some before. Basically, the tradition in Gee's Bend is said to go back beyond the 19th century and draws on Native American and also African designs, which if you see some of their designs, you can actually see that. You can actually see kind of how the lines and things kind of match up to like more ethnic and cultural fabrics. And women would piece together strips of old clothing or rags for bed coverings. They often lived with their children in small shacks that were without electricity or running water. The quilts have also been called some of the most miraculous art that has been seen and is an integral part of the Freedom Quilting Bee, which is a cooperative located throughout the Black Belt of Alabama, which if you're not familiar with the Black Belt, that's essentially a long line through southern states of extremely dark, rich, fertile land, dirt, soil. So it was great for planting, and that's like basically where there was a line of plantations and lots of farm work done all up and down the Black Belt. So on February the 1st, 2021, their pieces actually finally became available for purchase online. Like they had never been available. They just hadn't had the resources, hadn't had the backing. So this year, February 1st, their pieces became available for purchase on Etsy. It's an artisan website, and it was made possible through a partnership with Nest. Nest is a nonprofit that's focused on the equity and the makers movement, and also the Souls Grown Deep, which is a foundation focused on elevating Black artists. The 1960s gave the quilters a huge boost of fame. They worked with a collector and a curator named William Arnett, but he drew criticism and also praise because he brought a lot of recognition rather to Black belt artists, because there weren't just the quilters. There were people who did pottery, people who did painting. I mean, all sorts of artists that were along that Black belt in that time that he kind of I don't want to say cherry picked, but he was the person. I mean, if nobody else is doing it, kind of people see what they see and you kind of get what you get. Um, but yeah, like there's a lot that's kind of in that story, but again, this is more kind of trying to focus on the quilters. Two other quilters actually filed lawsuits against him, and also Kathy Ireland Worldwide, basically disputing money earned, claiming gross exploitation, and using their names and images to kind of promote sales of items. The quilts through the years have been displayed in the Met, in the Whitney Museum of American Art, Houston's Museum of Fine Arts, as well as, and I didn't even know this, but as well as a run of postage stamps in August of 2006. So I feel like I was just a little baby child then, and I didn't really care about postage stamps, but I feel like it rings a bell thinking about it. But yeah, so they were gaining more momentum into the 2000s, but still didn't really get that highest honor until 2015. So it still took many, many years to be really recognized. With more attention on the tiny town of about, I'd say give or take, 269 residents-ish. Not that many people. Yeah, very, very few people. They hoped it would attract more businesses and garner funds for its crumbling infrastructure. There was a ferry that actually would bring people across the river because it's essentially completely secluded on the other side of a river. And that ceased operation in the early 60s, I think 1962. So that kind of stopped travel. Like, I mean, you can't go where you can't go. And if people can't get to you, then it is what it is. They have no way of traveling to you and knowing what you have to offer. But in 2006, the ferry was actually rebuilt. Again, there's always something. Like there's a story that goes with that where they contracted someone to do it and it didn't really work out so good. So then it literally had to be built from scratch because there were all these safety issues with the first one. But now the trolley is officially up and running, and it has been again since 2006. Unfortunately, they're still not seeing the influx of businesses to bring the people. In one article I read that it was disappointing that you can get the people there, but you can't keep them there because they would come across, see the quilts, and then that's the town. If they want to eat lunch, if they want to do anything else, they have to literally get back on the ferry and leave. So they're not really seeing money from the tourism because it's literally like micro tourism. So it's only helping and only aiding the quilters because there's nothing else there. With COVID hitting hard in the older communities, and a lot of the quilters, a lot of the ladies are very much older. I mean, they've had a lot of troubles, but for the most part, almost being kind of secluded on the other side of a river has kind of worked in their favor. The women have been busy sewing quilted masks for the community and through their Etsy shops. Like, I think there should be a link somewhere in here about that. You can actually view a couple of the ladies' quilts. I mean, the pieces are beautiful. It's actually inspired me to start quilting, so I'm pretty excited about that. And yeah, I mean, it just was really interesting to read kind of through their history and see the ups and downs and how much they've really struggled and how something so utilitarian has really been elevated to what it truly is, and that's an art form. Like, it's absolutely beautiful. That's what I
got. So I know you said like the group started like during slavery.
Mm-hmm.
So were these, I guess my question, so they were slaves making
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, they were slaves essentially through a lot of real weird stuff and like ownership of a plantation kind of changing. Like, the owner died and then more aggressive people came in. There was land being bought and sold to the government, which gave people of color in the area ownership of some of the land. It gave them the opportunity to buy the land. but then they like just still not a lot of resources and not a lot of things to do. So kind of the one constant was the women's ability to be able to scrounge and kind of make it up and utilitarian, use what they could use to keep their families warm and safe.
Um, so like you talk about like now they're available on Etsy.
Mhm.
So were they, I guess my question, like were they selling them to other people in the town or like
So
nearby or
yes
just using
and
them
no.
themselves?
Yeah, yes and no. It was kind of because they had been kind of pushed into this like in the early 2000s by Mr. Arnett, kind of pushed into this like spotlight of this is art, this should be recognized as art, why are we not seeing this art and displayed in the museums? It kind of turned more into, okay, these are things that can be bought and sold as art, not so much as quilts. Like it's not something you use, you hang it up, it hangs up in a museum, you don't touch it. But they very much like want the items to be used. Like that's what they were created for. They were created to be used. The women all still sit around and hand quilt the quilts. Like it's very, very interesting to see.
The idea of hand quilting just sounds exhausting.
But truly, they're just doing a lot of the more traditional, like straight quilts. So it's not like like nothing crazy. That's why I'm like, okay, I think I feel comfortable with if I could just do a bunch of straight lines, I'll be okay.
And I think that's me. It's like when I think about quilting, I'm like, that just sounds like a lot of work. And
I'm
it
like,
is.
tired. I've got all this fabric. I won't show you, but I have a lot of fabric. And so I feel like I can make it something small just to start, but like really, really, really good story.
Yeah. I mean, that speaks to it being an art, right? Because, like, I sew, but I'm not going to make a quilt.
Yeah.
You know? And that really speaks to it being an art.
Oh, absolutely. And
Actually, my
show pictures of them so you can kind of see them, but like literally if you just Google quilts or quilters of G's Bend, like you get so many hits and the pictures are just breathtaking, and what has been displayed in the museums is gorgeous. Like it's wild, absolutely wild.
my question is, how did you come to find out about them? All of us obviously had interesting people or whatever, but having some serious down home country roots in Marshall, Texas, where people are kind of isolated and stuff. I'm interested to know how you came about finding out about these lovely ladies.
So I'm on Etsy because a seller on Etsy. So
Okay.
I feel like I like something popped up maybe late January, February when they published their article. And I was like, oh, okay, I don't know. I just want to go to my shop. I need to manage some stuff. I need to I need to do whatever I need to do. And then I was looking somewhere else, and it just must be Google listening to conversations or paying attention to because for some reason, like a week or two later, it popped up again. And I thought, well, what is this? Let me let me look a little bit more in depth into like, because obviously somebody's trying to show me something. Like
Okay.
The
FBI
universe is
things that
telling you
in my
something.
life. Yeah. They keep planning these things like little nuggets of, hey, look at this, hey, it's over here, hey, don't forget about this. So really it was just completely by chance.
Oh, that's
Completely.
awesome though, to come to find out this awesome piece of history that you know hasn't got its due diligence until 2021 or what have you, when they
Right.
finally recognized. So I
And I mean,
think that's awesome. I appreciate you bringing that to us today.
there's like $3,000 quilts up there. Like these quilts are no joke. They are quality pieces of heirloom like art that you use. You want to use it.
Well, that's like when you said the thing about the stamps, like I had this image in my head. My
Right.
parents, I was like, I feel like I've seen a stamp with a quilt on it.
I was like, these feel familiar, but do they feel familiar because I'm telling myself that they feel familiar? Do I remember going to the post office for something and seeing stamps with quilts on them? Like,
Right. Well, you said when was it? When did they put the stamps on?
In 2006, so it would have been 3 years after we graduated.
No.
So maybe, I mean, I could have been in a, I don't know.
I feel like I was mailing my rent at that time, so.
Oh. Yeah, so maybe. It was I definitely recommend anybody, like, they have a pretty thorough Wikipedia page. They don't have an actual official website. The only website that I could find kind of directly tied to them is for a retreat. So you can actually have a G's Bend retreat. And even with COVID, they actually are doing it this year because they did not do it last year, obviously. But this year it is back on and you can register for that. They take classes and like one-on-one kind of workshops with the actual Quilters of G's Bend, which is pretty freaking epic.
That's pretty awesome. So are they doing any, like, what are they, like, are they passing it down to, like, their children and grandchildren?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Generations and generations and generations. Like, it sounds like when you say, oh, the G's Bend Quilters, like there's just a handful of ladies, but there's loads of, like, that is a familial tradition through the community. So almost every, even still, almost every household, like the quilting is an integral part, and they get together in someone's house and rotate out the quilts and all sit there and hand quilt and work on, Susie's quilt this time, and then next time it rotates out to Betty's quilt or whoever it is. So it is an integral part of their community. Like, period.
Wow.
It is their blood.
I love that. I love that it's not just art, but it's so much a part of their community. Is it like, what is that? When we were in the shop, like, pick a little, sew a little, pick a little, sew a little.
And going to their Etsy, like, you can really see a difference between like some of the younger women and some of the older, like how even with the older, like it's changing, like they are really adapting and trying new things and still very utilitarian as far as using kind of what they have. Like it's really cool. There's one that's like a denim-y, and this is one that was in a museum, and it was like denim patches from like old jeans, and there was like pockets in it. Like it's just so smart. It's very smart. And people just, like, a lot of people just don't work in that mindset anymore because it's such a disposable time. So the fact that they are not there, they are still in the, use everything, use what we can again and again until we can't anymore.
Well, I think that too, like, especially, like, that speaks to like Black culture and slave culture of like using what you have.
Because that's your only option.
And then, like, too, like, I'm sure, like, during the Great Depression, they were probably still making quilts and using what they had. Like, I think when
Great Depression, it's funny you should say that completely decimated, like, over half of the population left. Like, I mean, there was almost nobody left.
Oh, in the town.
Yeah. Like, it almost drove them into the ground. It hit them really, really hard. Obviously, everybody was poorer than poor.
Right.
But they were still quilting.
Well, that's, I guess, like, since you say that, what is, like, is it a farm town? It's
It was, like I said, it's along the Black Belt, so it was a lot of farming, a lot of agriculture, like big plantation houses. There was one main plantation house in the town because it is kind of a little pocket. But once that kind of shut down, and like there really wasn't much left, and they're still really struggling with what they have because there's, again, just not a lot. There's just not a whole lot. And while it's brought a lot of income and it's brought a lot of notoriety, as they said, it's like they come for the quilts, but then they leave for everything else because there's literally nothing here.
And there's nothing else to do.
Yeah. Yep. It's like they can't get any major restaurants. They can't, like, there's nothing really that they can do, unfortunately. So
Unfortunate.
Any other questions?
Yeah. No. Okay. No, I'm not hearing anything.
No.
Well, like my visuals come in and out, so like if you don't say something, and then I don't know you're saying anything. So no more questions. Thank you, Ashley. That was super informative and interesting, and I'm gonna have to go Google these quilts now because they sound amazeballs. So thank you for watching. Our next series is going to be on the N-word history and is nigga okay to use. Thanks for watching, and as always, don't be a racist and wash your hands.